kurz was wertschätzen in diesem Spiel. Es gibt ja viele Punkt-Punkt-Punkt-Pausen, auch in diesen Dialogen, wie bei jedem japanischen Spiel. Sagen Charaktere oft nichts und es wird oft mit Punkt, Punkt, Punkt dargestellt. Und mir ist es gerade, es ist mir schon mal bei ein, zwei japanischen Spielen aufgefallen, jetzt gerade ist wieder bei Attack on Titan. Da machen die nämlich etwas, was, finde ich, mit Strafen von Zehennagel rausreißen bis Kopf abbestraft werden sollte. Nämlich, sie machen 2 Punkte. Jemand sagt was und die machen Punkt, Punkt. Mach entweder 3 Punkte oder 1 Punkt. 2 Punkte geht nicht. Das wollte ich nur mal kurz gesagt haben. An die Kreatoren von Attack on Titan. Charme on your. So, willkommen bei Nein,
hätten wir das kurz geklärt. Ja. Ist aber auch wichtig. Ab und zu muss man so Sachen mal ansprechen.
Ja, wenn ich nicht sage, wer macht's denn?
Ja.
Traut sich doch sonst keiner.
Nee.
Ja.
Okay.
Hallo. Wir sind gerade aus diesen Doppelräumen da entkommen, haben ein Hundebild analysiert und wurden davon verwirrt, hatten ein ausführliches Gespräch darüber, wie plötzlich die ganze Welt gelernt hat, dass das ein Hund ist, obwohl die alle gar nicht dabei waren, was bestimmt so in echt auch passiert ist.
Und wir haben im Nachhinein herausgefunden, dass diese letzte Option, die man wählen konnte zum Erkennen des Bildes Funya Rinpa oder so,
dass wir das noch weißt, dass du da nachguckst, oder?
Nee, also ich weiß ja nicht, ob das stimmt.
Es klingt sehr
richtig. Es war irgendwas mit
klingt auf jeden Fall richtig.
Also so in der Art, und dass das ein Witz ist vom Spiel.
Das gibt's nämlich nicht.
Genau, das ist nichts Existentes, das ist tatsächlich irgendwas Fiktives.
Daher gäbe es auch einen kurzen, lustigen Dialog, Entschuldigung.
Genau.
Aber wir mögen Lustiges nicht, deswegen haben wir das nicht gewählt. Wir sind ein ernster Kanal mit ernsten Spielen. Los, Tom, lege ernst los.
They stepped through the door to find themselves in a wide hallway. Junpei, June, Lotus and Santa stopped for a moment and looked at their surroundings. A short distance away, a metal grate extended across the width of the hallway. They took hold and shook, but it refused to move. Nearby was a pair of elevators. It took only a few button presses to determine that the elevators would not respond to their efforts. They could only assume the elevators were not powered. There was only one door left.
Well, it looks like we don't have any choice. Yeah. Sure does. Well then, let's open it.
Junpei grabbed hold of the knob and quietly pushed the door open.
Da mussten gerade 7 Leute was sagen, um zur Entscheidung zu kommen, eine Tür zu öffnen.
He entered slowly, trying to take in as much of his surroundings as he could. The others followed shortly.
Oh, so it's a kitchen.
Santa did not look pleased.
I hate the kitchen. What were you expecting? Isn't it obvious? The exit. I was hoping this would be the way out of here. You really think it'd be that easy? Yeah, I know, still.
As they talked, Lotus headed deeper into the room. Until at last she stood in front of a door.
If we can just get through this door, we should come out on the other side of that grate we saw earlier. But don't we need a key for that? Sorry, I guess that wasn't very constructive.
Neither Junpei nor Lotus looked terribly happy. Junpei dug the ship map from his pocket and spread it out in front of him. As he did...
Hey! What's that? Huh? Oh yeah, I guess I forgot to tell you. I found this a little while ago. It's a map of the B-deck.
Before Junpei could finish, Lotus snatched the map away from him. She ran her finger across it, muttering to herself.
I knew it. See, look.
Junpei did as he was told. Santa and June moved over to look at the map as well.
See? We came in here. If we go out there, then we'll be on the other side of the grate.
With her finger, Lotus traced a path on the map. She was right. Satisfied she had been correct, Lotus folded the map and handed it back to Junpei. He took it and slid the valuable piece of paper back into his pocket.
There's a card reader on the right side of the door. Then that means the key card is somewhere in here, right? That seems the most likely. Alright, we know what we need to do then. Let's get moving. First off, I say we split up and look for clues. Okay. Ging schnell dieses Mal.
Ja, es gibt bestimmt viel, was sie uns noch erzählen müssen bei jedem Schritt des Rätsels.
Wir untersuchen einmal die Kitchen Sink. Die ist, fällt mir zum Beispiel gar nicht ein.
Spüle?
Ja, und da kriegen wir einen Whetstone, das ist, weiß ich noch, weil das habe ich auch versucht so zu spielen. Kannst du jetzt gerade den Whetstone aufheben?
Warte mal.
Ja.
Also jetzt muss er
There are plates in here, but I don't think they're gonna help us much. Wirst du hier drauf kommen, dass das interaktiv, dass du das aufheben kannst? Das sah wie so ein
Das wirkte nicht
Ding
wie
aus.
etwas, was man nehmen kann.
Ja. So, Whetstone. Dann gehen wir durch eine Tür, die irgendwo sein wird. Da links, das ist die, durch die du nicht durchkommst. This is the door we... Okay, dann gibt es noch eine. Das können wir springen.
Keine Tür? Da ist eine Tür.
So, dann haben wir eine Pantry.
Cheese!
Da gehen wir, gucken mal auf den Cheese. Guck mal behind the middle cheese.
Ach ja.
Hey, there's something behind the cheese. You're right. Why don't we move some of the cheese? Alright guys, time to move it. June and I need to look behind you. Was ein Bullshit. There's a little green bottle backer there. Bottle of oil. Dann gucken wir. In einer der Regale müsste eine dünne Box sein, wo wir ein...
Hier?
Wo wir ein rostiges Knife von Twitter sehe ich schon. There's so much stuff in here. A whole lot of cans. This is probably a pantry. Ich muss genau auf die Box drücken.
Ernsthaft?
Ja, schätze ich.
Auf das dünne da in der Mitte.
Ja. Yeah.
Oh!
So ein Bullshit. So, wenn du gleich im Inventar bist, das Knife mit dem Öl benutzen. A rusty knife. I don't think we'll be able to use it while it's like this.
The knife seemed important, Junpei thought, but it wasn't going to be much use the way it was.
It's futile. Oh, yeah.
Jetzt geht's los.
Futile? You know, a waste. Useless, pointless. Oh. Any particular reason you wanted to bring that up? Oh, no reason, really. I was just thinking about futility.
Yes. She wasn't making much sense. Junpei tried rephrasing his question.
Why were you thinking about futility?
At last she answered.
Well, it has something to do with the Titanic. The Titanic? Yep. Have you ever heard the story that the sinking of the Titanic was predicted? Was ein Übergang. Da hat sich jemand richtig angestrengt.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. There was a novel that had a bunch of stuff in it that described the sinking of the Titanic before it actually sank. Yeah, that's the one. The title of the novel is Futility. It was written 14 years before the Titanic sank. But... I know. I mean, I didn't know the name of the book, but the story was the same, right? It was just like what happened on the Titanic? Yeah. Well, I heard it was all a hoax. A hoax? I heard that the stuff that matched up to the Titanic so well was actually added after it sank. Apparently the only thing that was the same originally was that a boat ran into an iceberg and sank. But the novel was published in 1898, 14 years before the accident. Like I said, that was the first print of the book. 14 years later, the author heard about what happened to the Titanic. He figured that was his chance, you know? He just went back and changed some stuff into his novel, so that it matched the Titanic exactly.
Surprised by Junpei's response, June seemed rather taken aback.
Really? Really? There's no such thing as premonitions or any of that stuff.
For a moment, June looked very unhappy, more so than Junpei thought was normal for such a discussion. But it lasted only a moment. With no apparent reason, she suddenly looked up at him, alarmed.
But... That wasn't the only book that predicted the Titanic sinking. It wasn't? Yep. There were two other similar stories written by a man named William Thomas Stead, both of them before the accident. One in 1886 and one in 1892. Stead wrote two stories that had striking similarities to the Titanic disaster. In one, two ships collided and many of the passengers died because there weren't enough lifeboats. In the other, a ship collided with an iceberg and sank. I don't know. I mean, I give you that it seems a little weird, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't too uncommon for ships to hit icebergs back in the day, or even other ships. Right. I knew you'd say that. Huh? But what if Dad had some sort of special powers? To be more specific, what if he had the ability to do automatic writing? What's automatic writing? Why are you talking about that thing where someone says they are possessed by a spirit and then they write a bunch of stuff without knowing what they're writing? Yes. What do you mean, yes? Stuff's a lot of bull. Okay, so let's say, hypothetically, that automatic writing isn't a total load. These guys still couldn't have predicted the sinking of the... These guys still couldn't have predicted. When this dead dude wrote his thing, nobody had died on the Titanic yet. So if automatic writing is about being possessed by the spirits of dead people, who the hell possessed him so he could write that stuff? That's not it. What's not it? Dad wasn't possessed by a spirit. He was doing the possessing. What are you smoking? William Thomas Stead was a passenger on the Titanic. He just wrote down what he saw with his own eyes. 20 years before it happened.
He decided it was probably best to say nothing. What June was saying was insane and utterly absurd. If he tried to take what she was saying seriously, he'd go mad. Junpei smiled uncomfortably.
Well, why don't we talk about this some other time? Okay. Huh? But...
Her voice trailed off, and she glanced at the floor, troubled. Junpei tapped June gently on the shoulder and awkwardly reached around her to pick up the knife from the box.
So einmal mit Öl kombinieren.
Oh Mann.
Und dann mit dem Whetstone. Was? Kombinieren wir das mal in anderen Kombinationen. Whetstone mit Öl und dann das mit... Ah. Maybe I use the Whetstone to sharpen the knife.
Macht wahrscheinlich auch die meisten Sinn. Und das jetzt mit dem Öl?
Nee, warte mal. Nee, müssen wir. Ich habe falsch gelesen. Genau. Okay, da mal raus. Und da ist dann noch eine Tür liegen. Kannst du darauf drücken?
Hier?
So, genau.
Oh,
und da benutzt du das Öl mit dem Schloss.
Okay. Hast dich gerade nur verguckt oder was?
This bolt is rusted in place. It won't budge. Of course. Maybe if I put some oil on it. Hey. Just a little bit of oil and... Come on, you little son of a bitch. Wow. Yes, got you, little bastard. Oh, er hasst Türschlösser. You did it, Jumpy. You're so smart. Gehen wir jetzt rein und da gucken wir dann auch mal in die Sheriffs gleich.
As Junpei walked into the room, a blast of cold air washed over him. Almost instinctively, he folded his arms tight across his chest, doing what he could to conserve body heat.
Oh, it's cold in here. What is this place? Are you blind? It's a freezer.
Santa's teeth had already begun to chatter. Hardly surprising. The freezer was far too cold for someone dressed as he was. Lotus, however, was in an even worse situation.
Oh, no way! That's way too cold for me. I freeze solid in seconds. Sorry, but I'm afraid I'll have to pass on this one. I'm going to leave the rest to you.
And with that, she ran out of the room. As Lotus left, June came in.
Wow, it's really cold in here.
White puffs of steam hovered in front of their faces as they talked. June had already started to shiver.
Hey, you don't need to be in here. You had a fever just a little bit ago. You should stay outside. We got this. No, I'm fine. My fever's gone now. But...
Junpei had scarcely opened his mouth when the thunderous sound of metal upon metal rang out from behind them. In unison, they spun around to find that the door they had only recently come through was closed.
Exclamation mark.
Junpei rushed to the door. Desperately, he grabbed hold of the doorknob.
Ow!
It was cold. Beyond cold. Merely touching it was painful. The doorknob had been frozen solid. They quickly deduced that the pipe next to the door had ruptured. Water released by the rupture had hit the door and frozen instantly. Santa shoved Junpei aside and pounded against the door.
Hey, Lotus! You're out there, right? Open the door!
She wasted no time in responding.
What do you want? What's going on? The door won't open. Try opening it from that side. Please. Ach, fine. If you say so. Hold on.
Soon they could hear Lotus on the other side of the door. Then the grunting ceased and they could hear light panting, as if from exertion.
It's no use. Tom?
Oh, das sind ja gleich zwei. It's no use. Won't budge. Das ist ja gleich Sonic und Realms of the Haunting.
You've got more trouble in there. You've got more people in there. You figure it out.
You've got more people in there. Logik.
God damn it.
Santa was shaking like a newborn deer.
Like that.
June was hugging herself and was shivering violently. Even Junpei, with the heaviest clothes of any of them, was clearly feeling the cold. With every breath they took, they could feel the cold working its way deeper and deeper into their bodies.
Anyway, let's find a way out. If we don't get moving, we're gonna be permanent residents. Two heads are better than none. I'm sure we'll figure something out. Yeah, you're right. Let's just take a good look around the room, okay? Right.
They pushed in close to one another and began to search.
Escape Room in einem Escape Room.
Ja, wirklich.
Genau, da gucken wir uns mal die Shelves und da finden wir etwas. There's some frozen meat up there. Looks like pork. Huh? What's this? It looks like a tag or something. So, dann öffnen wir den Schrank. Nehmen da verschiedene Sachen raus.
Dry Eyes. Jetzt kommt eine Story zu Dry Eyes. Junpei picked up the dry eyes with his sleeve so as to avoid burning himself.
Dry ice is just frozen carbon dioxide, right? Yeah, it is. I wonder how warm it has to get for it to turn back into gas again. Hell if I know, I really don't care. Kind of cold. Let's get out. How is it gonna help us anyway? Oh well, I figured we might be able to use it to get out of here.
They were about to move on when June spoke up.
Carbon dioxide's sublimation point is 109 degrees. Any warmer than that and it'll turn into gas. Any lower and it becomes solid.
Junpei looked at her, dumbfounded.
How do you know that? Despite my looks, I'm the the queen of random knowledge.
Sure.
Looks bad to mess up when you're showing off.
Like automatic writing.
Ja. Agel mal auf, Murmel. Oh, you're so cold, your mouth's going numb. Yes. That's fine. You're just doing that on purpose, aren't you? What the fuck is going on?
June giggled and did her best to hide her guilt. At least she was still feeling good enough to joke around, Junpei told himself.
Come on, guys, don't you think that's kinda weird? I wonder why it doesn't turn into a liquid first.
Santa was now shivering at an astounding rate, but his curiosity seemed unaffected. Junpei, however, was not in a mood to discuss science. He wanted after a freezer.
No.
Now, it did strike Junpei as rather odd.
Did strike... Oh, wir könnten auch das an... Kommt drauf an, würdest du ausführlichere Erzählungen genießen wollen? Oder nicht?
Das kommt auf die Erzählung an.
Ich würde ja jeden Dialog mitnehmen.
Ja.
Dann?
Okay. It did seem rather odd to Junpei, and he couldn't help but think about it. June answered.
But it can turn into a liquid. Carbon dioxide turns to liquid if you put it under high enough pressure. But at 1 atmosphere normal air pressure, it won't turn into a liquid, right? That's right. Instead of melting, it'll do what's called sublimating and change immediately from a solid state to a gaseous one. See, that's weird. Water's a liquid between 32 degrees and 2012 degrees. So why... Das ist Fahrenheit übrigens für alle Leute, die sich... So, oder?
Ja, würde ich mal stark annehmen.
So why isn't that the case for carbon dioxide?
June replied with an answer that stunned both of them.
There's a kind of ice that doesn't turn into liquid when it goes... There's a kind of ice that doesn't turn into liquid when it goes above 32 degrees. What? I heard about it. Its melting point is 196 degrees. Ice melting with a melting point of 96 degrees? You mean there's water that freezes at 96 degrees? Yeah, that's what I said, you idiots. Well, you could also look at it as ice that won't melt until it's 96 degrees. Haben die jetzt dreimal das gleiche gesagt?
Water that freezes at 96 degrees? Ice that won't melt until it's 96 degrees? Junpei was cold as hell, but this was too interesting to ignore. He did his best to warm up by rubbing his arms and stamping his feet, then put the question to June.
So what's this ice with a melting point of 96 degrees called? I heard it's called Ice 9. Ice 9? Originally, Ice 9 was a made-up substance invented by a science fiction author. But recently, scientists have discovered that such a substance actually exists. Wait, hold up. So is this thing called Ice 9 or is it water? Like I said, if the ice is over 96 degrees, it'll be liquid. If it's under that, it'll solidify. So you could think of it as a polymorph of H20. Here, think of it like diamonds and graphite. They are both made of carbon, right? But depending on the structure of the crystallization, the hardness and structure are completely different. So you're saying normal water and this Ice 9 are like that? Yep.
She wasn't finished.
Have you heard the story about the crystallization of glycerin? For 150 years after the discovery of glycerin, people cooled it, warmed it, and did all sorts of things to it. But whatever they did, it never crystallized. However, one day in 1920...
Some glycerin that was en route to England by ship was discovered to have crystallized during the trip. Naturally, scientists worldwide wanted to research this new crystallized form of glycerin and began asking for samples of the seed. A seed is, of course, a sample of the original crystallized substance. With a seed crystal, further crystallization of glycerin would be a simple matter. However, something very strange happened. Not only did the glycerin encouraged by seed crystals begin to crystallize, nearby samples did as well. It didn't end there. After that day, all glycerin in the world began to crystallize naturally when cooled to less than 64 degrees. Before that day, no matter how glycerin was cooled, it refused to crystallize. But once the crystallization had begun...
It was almost like... How do I put it? It was almost like all the glycerin in the world was communicating. Communicating in some way that we can't sense.
Junpei was honestly was kind of annoyed. Gibt's da irgendwas?
Wie du magst.
Okay, dann sind wir mal honestly impressed. It was, in fact, a pretty interesting story.
Wow. That's pretty interesting. That's a pretty interesting story. What does that have to do with Ice 9?
To his surprise, it was Santa and not June who answered.
What she's saying is that it's a lot like Ice 9. What happened, I mean? A lot like that would be bad. If water everywhere started freezing at 96 degrees, man, it'd be the end of the world.
Junpei felt that Santa might not be treating the idea of the end of the world with a proper concern.
At any rate, we're not gonna have to worry about the end of the world unless we can get out of here pretty damn quick.
He was right. Junpei shivered.
Alright guys, I think that's enough of that. I didn't think we'd get quite this far off topic. I mean, I know I'm kinda at fault here, but we can't be screwing around anymore. Seriously. I might go by the name Santa right now, but I didn't grow up in Iceland. I freaking hate the cold, so let's get cracking, alright? We gotta find a way out of here.
Santa stomped off, clearly doing his best to pretend the cold wasn't affecting him. Selfish, isn't he? Thought Junpei to himself. Still, Santa was right, and it was high time they got back to their search. The story of Ice 9 had him interested, but there'd be time to think about that once they'd gotten out of the freezer. Junpei looked at June, nodded, and resumed his search of the room.
Have I ever told you about the concept of utility? Das haben wir. Wir gucken einmal auf den Floor, diese Klappe da unten. Genau. Da nehmen wir auch ein paar Sachen raus.
Sturdy rope. Water bottle.
Okay, guck nochmal in den Schrank. Da unten auf das Fleisch mal drücken. Mhm, das ist nämlich auch geil.
Frozen
Das
Chicken.
ist automatisch rausgegangen, aber da ist noch was drin.
Ja.
Jetzt kombinierst du mal das Dry Ice natürlich mit dem Chicken. Of course. Alright, the Dry Ice is all in pieces now.
Als Hammer benutzt.
Dann benutzt du das Crushed Dry Ice mit der Water Bottle. I'm gonna put these pieces of Dry Ice into the Water Bottle. Und dann benutzt du das mit dem Rope. And let's just tie rope on here. Water Bottle Bomb.
Kennt man.
Jetzt benutzen wir den Door Handle.
Warm water dripped from the ruptured pipe near the door. Junpei pulled out the water bottle filled with dry ice, let a good amount of water fall in, and then quickly sealed it up tight. The makeshift bomb completed, he tied it to the doorknob as quickly as he could manage in the cold.
Alright, that's it. So, what do we do now? We just need to give it a little tap. The bottle's already about to pop. If we just throw a rock or something at it, it'll go off all on its own. A small rock. A small rock.
Junpei looked down at the floor.
You found June.
Scattered across it were pieces of dry ice left over from the larger chunk he'd crushed earlier.
Alright, this ought to do the trick.
He pulled his sleeve down over his hand and to keep it from getting burnt and grabbed the chunk of dry ice. It was a pretty good size, about as big as a pool ball. He figured it would be just about the right size.
Alright guys, stand back. Actually, we should probably hide somewhere.
Both Santa and June looked at him with new concern.
Where exactly do you expect us to hide, genius? There isn't really anywhere big enough. Yeah, there is. Look! Right here! We can hide in there.
Junpei pulled open the door to the small cellar.
Come on! Get inside, quick!
Santa and June nodded and jumped down into the hole. Junpei quickly followed. In his hand he could feel the chill of the frozen carbon dioxide even though his sleeve. He tightened his grip, took aim and prepared to throw.
Alright, here it goes. 3, 4, 5... You're counting the wrong way! Oops! That is a really sad excuse for a joke, man. Sorry, dude. Alright, for real this time. You guys ready? Yes, whenever you're ready. Just throw the damn thing. Alright, here I go.
Hätte nicht
3,
jemand Lotus
2,
warnen sollen?
1. Hey, Gap!
Junpei threw the chunk of dry ice as hard as he could. With the same motion, he ducked down into the cellar with Santa and June, just as...
Ist auch nicht schlecht, das zu treffen, wenn man so voll kann.
Beim ersten Mal.
Ja.
Junpei leapt out of the cellar and ran to the door.
Jumpy! The ice on the door! Is it gone? Yeah, it's gone! The blast must have shattered it. Yeah, alright, let's see if it opens.
Junpei grabbed the doorknob and pushed with all his might. The door gave way easily and all three of them tumbled out of the freezer at once.
Hooray! We out!